All right, everybody, good to see you again. I guess this is that churn they were referring to, is it? That sort of post-lunch drop-off. But don't worry, once they hear you start talking, guys, they're going to be flooding into the room. You can be sure of that. But we'll do our best to just make sure the room fills up. But thanks to all of you for being here. And let's just remind you again to keep getting you engaged. So just make sure that you submit questions. You answer our poll question via the Slido app that you can access off the back of the QR code on your delegates badge. And let's just stay energized and engaged throughout the afternoon. It's been a fantastic summit so far. And we've come to a point now, really, where we're switching to another one of our broad themes. Where I've been standing over there largely over the last day and a half, I've heard a lot of people in here talking about how to spend money. And maybe now it's time to talk about how to make a bit of that money. A lot of talk about investment in content, a lot of talk about investment in tech and all that goes with that. But I'm very much aware that everyone in the room knows that the bottom line is that money has to come in. And we'll get into advertising and the advance of advertising a little bit later on. Let's just quickly, before we do that, remind you that we are polling you today. And thanks to our partners, we've got poll questions for you. So let's just bring you the first of those questions for the afternoon. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery are sponsoring this one. And we've just decided, in the interest of people being a little bit food coma, we're going to keep it simple, yes and no. All right? So will connected TV be the salvation of the premium video industry in Asia? Very simple, yes or no. I would suggest and counsel as ever that you just wait a bit on this one. All right, because there are very persuasive people about to take to this stage who might just influence what it is that you think about that. That's the first of our two poll questions. The second one, we're going to go down a similar route in terms of the ease of answering. Yes or no? Will fast channels eventually become a widespread phenomenon in most markets in Asia? Again, listen and then respond, and we'll keep you updated on that as we go. Before we dive directly into advertising, though, I think it's very important to talk about something that Miguel mentioned during his fascinating presentation just before we went to our lunch break, and that is the television itself. And he had a slide up there that simply said advertisers love television, which I thought was fascinating. And we're going to get into television right now, but not just any. Of course, it's, for many, still a very important piece of furniture in the house, and it serves very different purposes. But we seem to be at a tipping point, and we're just wondering if now is going to be the year, definitively, of CTV. And to discuss that, it's a very broad topic, but of course it's going to go into all sorts of directions that are going to interest you guys. We've got a fantastic panel. Now, Jill Bausa-Go is going to be actually moderating for us. She's the head of broadcast and publishing business group for Kroma Entertainment. Good to have you back on the stage. And then joining her, we're going to have the GM of inventory development for the trade desk, Douglas Choy. Douglas, thanks very much for coming along. And also we've got the MD Asia for Magnite, Gavin Buxton. So they are going to be on stage, and we have a bit of virtual presence as well today. Joining us from Australia, no less, we have the head of programmatic sales and audiences for the 7 network, Luke Smith. Jill, over to you to bring the panel to life. Let's have a round of applause, shall we?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Luke. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Hey, Luke.
Hey, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for staying. And as John was saying, TV has been a landmark furniture in the home for several years now. I also have a dad story. Miguel was talking about his mom, 80 plus years old, watching on a tablet. My dad, who has never known how to SMS his entire life, he's basically a calling person. Suddenly, I found him watching YouTube, but I'm his human remote control. So he couldn't figure out the all thumbs using the remote. But anyway, this panel is going to give you different perspectives on the future. Is connected TV going to be at its bastion now? Or is it basically hype, right? So joining me in the panel today is Luke, Gavin, and Dog. So I'll give them quickly a round robin in terms of what are they doing, how are they connected in the field of connected TV, to give you context of their different perspectives.
So my name is Doug. I'm the GM of inventory development. My remit at the trade desk is to work with different media owners like TVB, like TVer, and so on and so forth, these premium medias, to connect with our DSP. So the Trade Desk is an omni-channel demand-side platform where we help our brands activate their brand dollars across all of the different premium media channels. through SSPs like Magnite. Maybe I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, I'll take that cue. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks to AVIA for bringing us together. So I'm Gavin Buxton. I lead up Magnite for Asia. So Magnite, we're the largest independent supply-side company. With that, media owners utilize our technology and services to monetize their content across screens. And media agencies and brands trust our platform to access high-quality, brand-safe inventory at scale. For us, OTT CTV is a key component. We are omni-channel overall, but we have dedicated products with SpringServe as a dedicated OTT ad server. And then when it comes to programmatic enablement, we have Magnite Streaming that connects with DSPs and with Doug. And we're proud to have a number of partners in the room and across the region and in Australia that we work with.
So look, take it away.
Thanks, Gavin. So yeah, Luke Smith. I'm head of programmatic sales here at the Seven Network in Australia. We're one of Australia's largest broadcasters, but I've been with the business for the last nearly 6 years since we set up our streaming app called 7 Plus, and we're now a top streaming ad-funded streaming platform in the Australian market. Big events like the Women's World Cup that's coming up, and a number of major general entertainment tentpole programs that we deliver to Australians day in, day out.
So good perspective, because you'll get the nuance of the different areas that each of these gentlemen are in charge of. But just for terms of reference, maybe to start off, can we talk about the difference between connected TV and smart TV? Is there any difference?
I think from the Trade Desk perspective, connected TV is a device type where you can watch media on a big screen, and that big screen is incredibly important. I think more often than none, the terms that get really confusing will be the difference between CTV and OTT, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll hand that to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how we see it, OTT is the broad category of streaming. So where people are getting digital premium video content across any device. So whether that's your mobile phone, your desktop, or the subcategory of that, as we see it, is CTV. So OTT as a whole, and then CTV as a subcategory underneath that.
So I hope everybody's aligned when we talk about connected TV. Now, talking about each territory-centric situation, what is the situation like in Australia, and how is it gaining traction, Luke?
Yeah, Jill, for Australia, connected TV represents 85% of all the streaming that we have on the 7 Plus app. Live probably tends to be more CTV focused versus VOD, which indexes a little bit lower, but it's absolutely taking off. We're going through rapid change in the consumption of TV at the moment. But I think there was a point just made in the intro earlier where it said that the TV is still the main feature in the living room, so it's still the destination for households. So I think what's really changing here is just the connection that people are using, that being the internet instead of an aerial, and then also how they're engaging with content, whether it's live, whether it's on demand, or whether it's our other content pillar of being fast.
That's a big percent. I like the GSMA chart that Miguel showed earlier in terms of how broadband penetration and even smartphone penetration is actually changing the landscape on consumer behavior and also connected devices. But from CTV, from an SSP or supply standpoint, how does that figure?
Yeah, I mean, the importance for us is really there's that movement of streamers into the OTT environment, into the CTV environment. So when we work with publishers, obviously it's how they look to monetize within that. So being a supply-side platform, it's enabling publishers to best open up their inventory to programmatic, which I think we'll touch on more over the conversation. But it's very important for us to be able to service our clients in that area and focus on products and solutions that help them. When it comes to the region that I'm most focused on across Asia, including India, we're not quite at the stage of Australia yet in that 75%. We're seeing mobile is kind of been more of a lead device to date, but CTV is growing exponentially in all of the markets, and that can vary from 10 to 15% penetration to 40% penetration across Southeast Asia.
So very big divide from 5 all the way to 75.
Yeah.
Wow. How about from a demand side?
Well, I think when we think from our buyer's perspective, we look at it the same way. We just want to activate on premium content. And I think I'll give an example. Like when we look at connected TV spend, according to eMarketer, we've seen literally from 2022 about 27 billion yen, which is about $200 million USD growth to they predict in 2024 it's going to hit about 55 billion yen, which is about almost 400 million USD growth. So that type of spend growth in Japan as a market that's getting more and more mature in connected TV is going to give you a lot of opportunity. So we do think that CTV is here to stay and will continue to grow.
Great, but if you're taking a look at, let's say, connected devices, especially in the developing markets of Southeast Asia, India, Philippines, Indonesia, smartphone penetration is considered the smart device already. And if you have the ability to cast it, everybody thinks, "Oh, I have a smart TV already." So if that's the screen of choice, right, what is really the difference? And do you see a trend developing in the markets with large populations?
Yeah, from an Asia perspective, I could kickstart that. I guess coming back to the consumer and the viewer, if it's great content for them, there's kind of an appetite to be able to consume that where they want, when they want, and what device. And depending on the content and the time of day and where they are, that's kind of lead where they may be consuming that from. We see in Asia specifically, it is kind of mobile first. We have research from India in terms of what devices are you streaming on, and 88% of people are leading with mobile and spending the most screen time there. But 63% are actually utilizing CTV, that are connected users already. A few things behind that, we're seeing, the smart, low-cost data, smartphone penetration. As I actually saw today, I was walking along on the local buses, they have 5G Wi-Fi now. Yeah. So people being able to get great connections on the move is kind of a key part to that. In terms of the experience itself, was part of our survey, we asked people what's the viewing experience like, and 88% said it was good or very good in both mobile and CTV. So from a general perspective, they're seeing it as similar. It's great content and they can watch it. I think another factor within Asia is also at home, there's a higher number of people living in the house as generally. So people wanting to watch what they want. The big arguments over the big screen is less of a problem now. People can kind of go in their rooms and watch what they want to watch. So that's kind of where we're seeing some of that difference of mobile being a lead device, but the content still being key. On an ad level, that one-to-one element of mobile is quite interesting for advertisers, how they can target around that. Whereas CTV has kind of that multi-viewing viewership, which I think Luke and Doug can probably talk to.
Yeah, like the one-to-many, like if you think about a household, I think one fundamental thing we should think about is on average, we have about 4 people in the house. And then when we target a device, you're actually reaching more people than you're expecting to track down on the data itself. So at the Trade Desk, we have a household graph that does all of this mapping across device to ensure our clients can maybe activate the spend to target that user that, say, for example, throughout the day, he's looking at his mobile phone, and then that user switch on the big screen, and then that's actually a connected TV. They can actually reference that ad and target specifically to that particular household, so everybody in the household will see that same experience and sort of brings back that impact from an advertiser's perspective. When I talk about the Trade Desk, one of the most important things that we sell all the time is omni-channel. In order for us to be omni-channel, we need to be able to target that user wherever they are. And what's really exciting about that is the development of our household graph that is completely covered across the region. And as the market gets more connected, our coverage should continue to scale. And I think from the publisher's perspective, like they could think about how the users are going to different.
I like that customer journey mapping, right? So you're aware your customers are. How about you, Luke? The situation.
It obviously does make up a larger percentage of our streaming in Australia, but we refer to it as BVOD, even though that does take into account live streaming. But 7 Plus is accessible across all devices, so connected TV, mobile, and desktop. We do see a pattern in the change of consumption. Sometimes there might be particular shows that might be on at, say, 7 p.m. Home and Away is a big series here, and we tend to find that streaming spikes on mobile devices at around 8 or 9 o'clock, perhaps. Once the kids are in bed, that there's that guilty pleasure to be able to watch on the mobile. And then another interesting fact is, we've got the streaming rights to the NFL Super Bowl. So I can tell you that it's very heavy on desktop. When it's streaming here in Australia on a Monday morning, whilst everyone is meant to be working in the office at that time. So, absolutely, we want to be able to bring in as many audiences as possible, and we've got all the screens with which we can with which we can deliver on that.
That's called multitasking. So, how important is connected TV to the video industry? I come from a video background also. And the struggle is the monetization of broadcast, for example, for a rapidly changing environment. So how interesting, or what are the opportunities with connected TV?
I think I'll start with 3 words: dollars follow eyeballs. And when people's habit has changed, that they want to consume content on demand and in demand, they really just want to turn on that specific content and watch that specific app or specific, device that they want. So to me, brands, at least from the brand perspective, they are just looking to figure out a way to trace back that journey, to go back to my earlier point on the consumer journey, to really make sure that they reach the right users again and be able to target and do all of the things that they could have done in the past. And I actually think it's more advanced with connected TV, because you have the ability to do any sort of targeting that you can dream of in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the importance of it really is from a viewer perspective, they want to, again, watch what they want to want, where they want to watch. From the publisher, broadcaster, enabling that to happen so they're not losing eyeballs. And then, brands are looking to reach those audiences in these new areas. And I think the AVOD being a part of streaming is something we've spoken about a lot in Asia, because it's kind of been an area that's led in Asia, free to air, and then it's kind of led over to AVOD in markets like Australia, where, in the US, there's that distinction of not looking at AVOD so much. But we've seen in the last year with Disney and Netflix that kind of globally now, that's really kind of been where people are looking at to help that monetization journey from a publisher perspective, and for advertisers to reach those eyeballs that couldn't be reached before. So connected TV, a big part of everyone's journey, and how they're embracing it.
Perfect, because this morning there was this big debate whether is it linear with stability, but in terms of profitability, but slow growth, but high growth in streaming, but low profitability. So now we're talking about the dollars and the cents. How does it all translate to, and what's the future of monetization, advertising specifically in the premium video industry? What do you think?
I think one thing is really interesting, like he brought up Netflix and Disney Plus. I think for companies like this to make a decision to go fully subscription now, I'll do AVOD, advertising video on demand. It's a big decision for these companies. And I think in the long term, we do believe that advertising will become part of, if not one of the primary income sources, other than, for these TV players. We've been watching TV even on linear side with ads for so long. It's just the same comfort level. It's just a shift in terms of where the user is going. And I think in the longer term, if I were to think about it, like premium content with quality will actually earn more credible trust for our brands. And one of our studies at we did a study with Kantar called Gateway to the Open Internet in Japan. We actually have seen 3x trust in terms of brand awareness when they buy ads on an OTT/CTV device media.
It's not so intrusive.
Yeah.
It's your choice. Any point of view, Luke?
Yeah, listen, I think the future of advertising, in CTV, I think the future is CTV. I think I think in a world where, there's so much scrolling and minute moments with which to reach audiences, I think that 30-second TVC where you've got the sound, the movement, the emotion to convey, the engagement, absolutely remains the same. You've got to remember we're talking about the power of the big screen, the most valuable real estate for brands in the living room, but you've got the precision of digital. To be able to connect on that 1-to-1 or maybe 1-to-1.4 level. But what I think it is really is it's future-proofing the opportunities for brands to reach audiences at a point in which they're most engaged.
One thing I'd add into it that I think is a big part is consumers or viewers are stating they're open to ads. Like 80% generally, or most research across the Asia region has said they're open to ads. But when then followed up with what's the average length of time you'd accept ads for, they can put 0 on that. They're actually putting a time, and it's generally 8 to 10 minutes. But when it comes to free to air, depending on the market, it can be 10 to 20 minutes of actual ad time per hour. So that is consumers are open to ads, but they're getting a little bit more particular about it. So the ad experience then becomes a real defining part of a service offering, is how we see it. So great content, great user experience, but the ad experience then becomes the next layer of differentiation as we see it. So in terms of the amount of ads, with that comes, there's interest in and demand in that, is managing direct sold, managing programmatic, managing the ad experience. The research that we conducted, 77% of people said they would consider switching provider if the ad experience wasn't good. And we've seen some of the early days of ad experience of back-to-back ads or high frequency. So this is an area where publishers, broadcasters need to focus a lot of time. The technology's there, and that's something we support those partners with. But getting that ad experience right will be a key differentiator we see for the ones that are successful in the long run. And getting the right ad in front of the right person where you can charge a higher premium means you could probably reduce the amount of ads that you're running. So getting that dynamic work is kind of a key area of focus for the future of CTV advertising.
I enjoy ads. I refuse to pay for YouTube Premium. I'm just too cheap. But I don't really mind an ad
I don't think it's cheap.
as long as it's, I guess, relevant to me. No?
Yeah.
So now, if we talk about streaming services relying more on subscription than advertising, that's not the case in Australia in terms of BVOD you were talking about, Luke. Are we in a position now to fully exploit the potential of CTV given that a strong reliance on subscription? How does that work?
Yeah, listen, I think from a 7 or 7+ perspective, we're unashamedly free, premium, and ad supported. But what I think we're finding in particularly in this market at the moment, there's a bit of subscription fatigue. So, you count how many subscriptions that people have got to so many different SVOD services, and the cost of living is increasing, and people are starting to reevaluate that. And I think the SVOD publishers are starting to find that actually there might be another model with which they can start to hold on to these audiences. And so I think this is good for brands. It certainly increases the competition that we've got available, and it creates further complexity for brands as well. I mean, Gavin, you just touched on the ad experience. What we're finding in Australia is that those SVOD services are looking at different ways in which they will reduce the ad load, and we've done all sorts of trials. We run an ad holiday so that people aren't bombarded too often with too many ads. We've tried the reduced ad load, but obviously associated with that is premium CPMs. And I think that we don't see an increase in streaming from people with that improved ad experience on the reduced ad load. So I think people are accustomed to seeing ads. In Australia, it's 13 minutes per hour that the rule is, and I think audiences are absolutely used to that. But with the SVOD publishers coming in, I think audiences have got to ask themselves whether or not they want to be able to pay for a service where they're being interrupted throughout their stream.
Yeah, especially because the challenge now on the big screen for brands is how do you really engage the audience, or how does it really measure in terms of attribution? So is connected TV advertising the answer to the declining revenues for traditional TV? What's your take on that?
I think it complements each other, to be simple. connected TV. I think an example I can give here is in Hong Kong. TVB is a linear biggest local TV stations here. And they have earlier and already invested in their set-top box investment called My TV Super. And they have also started developing multiple apps for the smart TV, for iOS, and also for Android. So for them is still really capturing that user wherever they are. And for these companies, they work with the trade desk to try and make sure that we can manage that ad experience. The ad experience is so important because I think 3 words, again, sum up this. Not all, well, more than 3 words. Not all frequency are equal. Because if you imagine you go to a website and then you see multiple banner ads, and you're fine with that because you sort of ignore it. But if you're watching a TV and you see the same ad multiple times, that hurts. And that will hurt the brand itself. So I think brand will start to chase more towards value. They would rather play the premium to activate on the right media.
So it's not the frequency.
Well,
It's not. It's the quality.
it's the quality.
No, I agree with that. And in terms of the question on is it the answer to linear, I mean, it's the digital transformation of the digital streaming of where people consume. Yeah, our view is that all TV will be digitally consumed. And I would believe, linear will be part of that. It's just digitally delivered, as will, BVOD, video on demand, etc. So ensuring that the traditional broadcasters are in the right place, as kind of reference there and happening in Hong Kong and across the region, is a key part to how to attract that user and that eyeball. And then it's not just the TV competitors anymore. It's obviously social, UGC, gaming, etc. How to compete against those environments. So that's maybe not the only one and only answer to it, but it's like to help them in their evolution. It's a necessary part.
Correct. Now, top of mind for me in terms of who's lording it over, in terms of programmatic ads, would be the likes of YouTube and Facebook. Is there an opportunity to basically level the playing field with connected TV? Look, you have a POV.
It's my personal opinion. Listen, I don't think it's going to extend the dominance of what they've had across desktop and mobile. But I think CTV publishers know the device type. They know the audiences. And certainly there is a last mover advantage to be able to build products in a premium way based on previous learnings. So I think we certainly have identified mistakes that have been made. We know what brands want. We know what audiences want. So is it going to extend the dominance? Absolutely not. But it will. It will. I think CTV publishers are absolutely best placed to be able to perhaps counter that dominance.
There was a slide earlier by Miguel that said your competition is not really your competition, so better partner with them and consolidate. I think you have a point of view there, Doug, in terms of how we can basically win versus the biggest competition, which is the open internet.
I think to think about this fairly linearly, Facebook, biggest social, YouTube, biggest UGC platform. What is CTV? Most premium content that you would watch day in and day out. They comply by the local laws that all of the content are legal and it's not user generated. So if I was a brand and I want to activate media, I would want to pick the channel that earns the most trust for me, and that would be CTV.
That's true. So it's segmenting who you want to target, basically.
I think an interesting, in looking around the world, this year, I think it's the first year in the US that the walled gardens, being Facebook and Google, is dropping below 50% of where ad spends are going. We're seeing the same in the UK, that's changing, and TDD's own research has shown that 60% of people are spending their time on the open internet, but only 20% of spends are coming into that environment. So I think we're seeing some of the a different look from brands as to understanding where the eyeballs are. So that's kind of one trend we're seeing. And then CTV, I think, has a huge opportunity within that. A couple of things that need to get right. Ad experience is one. Make the simplicity of buying is another. That's where Facebook and Google Googles have done well and attracted those early ad dollars. In that simplicity of buying, one in understanding audiences, publishers are in the driving seat now with kind of other trends happening, cookies being removed. Publishers have that first-party data opportunity, especially in CTV, as a lot of them are logged in. So being able to work through that audience and element, and then being able to collaborate with others. I think some of that was on the slides earlier in the UK. There's that collaboration, I think, is key in terms of whether that's across measurement or in terms of audience layers that are kind of more standardized. They're the areas where, in kind of having that second move that Luke spoke to, there's an opportunity to really take CTV onwards beyond the walled gardens.
How is Australia combating all of these?
Combating the walled gardens. Listen, I think from a 7+ perspective, we sell our content. It's like selling TV how it used to be. We're selling our audience, and we don't hold bias to how brands want to be able to engage. We open up. We work with the trade desk. We work with Magnite. We create multiple different ways in which brands want to be able to engage. But we're certainly not in the position of creating rules as to how they can trade and how they execute. So. And that seems to be, that certainly seems to be, or Programmatic certainly seems to be the way in which they want to execute on that in this market.
Great POV. Now, we saw AI a while yesterday. How do we talk about, or how do we reconcile CTV, and how does it affect the development of contextual advertising?
On the contextual part, a little bit back to before, where understanding audience on contextual metadata and content signals, I think are key. So enabling that kind of standardization of understanding the audience and the content they're viewing, I think becomes a key part. And then with that, programmatic becomes a key part in the ecosystem of CTV. We see in the US now it's like 80% is programmatic activation, whereas in Asia at least, and it's different in Australia and some other markets, is more like 10 to 50, 60%. So having that contextualization coming through in the right way to help programmatic best work is a key area.
Good segue. I see here several questions. What's the difference between the CPMs of CTV versus mobile phone? Very curious. Is that a trade secret?
Luke might be best from
from a publisher perspective.
Yeah, from our perspective, it's the same. It's the CPM is the CPM. We have changed it in the past. There was certainly more demand going towards desktop and mobile, given there was targeting and VPAID and viewability metrics that could be added to that. But I think brands have certainly discovered the value of CTV, and it's all now aligned across all device types.
Equalizing. Komod sent a question. Are there any differences between watch duration and content switching behavior between CTV and mobile? Or is that a factor in ad placements? How does that affect it?
Yeah, listen, I could probably jump in with that one as well. I mean, we see CTV live streaming would be double that of what we have on VOD. And certainly CTV has a longer streaming session times than what we see across desktop and mobile as well.
Okay, we run out of time. Just one last question to the three of you. Fearless forecast in 5 years. Gavin.
I think programmatic being a key driver and audience and ad experience being key drivers behind that.
I think CTV is here to stay. Brands will focus on credible and premium media. There will be a shift towards value. Brands will pay the right price for the premium content that they want to activate. And metrics like brand recall or just TV quality index matter.
Great. Lastly.
I would say more growth, more competition, but importantly, a single currency with which to measure audiences across. And we're doing that in the Australian market with OzTam and the VOZ product, where we can understand who is watching on linear, who is watching on BVOD, and where there is a duplication between those. And that will give brands the ability to know exactly where they should be spending their budgets.
Helping you on that, I need to understand better. My key takeaway is dollars follow eyeballs. So I hope we learned a lot in this afternoon's panel. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.